About an hour?
Yeah,
Yes.
about an hour. Yeah.
An hour is good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And
Okay.
we are recording. So if you guys are ready, in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Trish. I
I'm
told
sorry,
you.
you go.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
Let's try it again.
so whoever's going to do this,
Rob's gonna go.
okay, in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the Mystical Underground. Thank you for joining us. This is Rob McGregor
And Trish McGregor.
and our producer and tech magician, John Posey. You can go to themysticalunderground.com where we make regular blog posts and where you can find out about our books. Among them, Phenomena, Harnessing Your Psychic Abilities, The Secrets of Spirit Communication, Sensing the Future, and Aliens in the Backyard. Our most recent book is called The Shift, Reports from the Mystical Underground. Trisha's latest novel is White Crows, and Rob's 7th Indiana Jones novel, The Staff of Kings, is available in ebook and audio. Trish.
Okay, our guests today are Ralph and Deborah Blumenthal. Ralph was a reporter for the New York Times from 1964 to 2009 and has written 7 books based on investigative crime reporting and cultural history. His first book related to the UFO, The Believer, Alien Encounters, Hard Science, and the Passion of John Mack, a really wonderful book. It was the first biography of Pulitzer Prize-winning Harvard psychiatrist John Mack, who died in 2004, who risked an esteemed career as a Harvard professor in psychiatry to pursue accounts of human abductions by aliens. Now Ralph has co-authored a beautifully illustrated children's book with his wife, Deborah, and it's called UFOs, Mysteries in the Sky. Deborah Blumenthal is an award-winning journalist and nutritionist who now divides her time between writing children's books and adult novels. She's been a regular contributor to The New York and a home design columnist for Newsday of Long Island. Her articles on health, fitness, beauty, and travel have appeared in many other newspapers and national magazines. Welcome to both of you. We've really been looking forward to this.
Hey,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So before we get into talking about your new book, the two of you wrote, I'd like to ask Ralph if you can give us any update on the story you broke a couple of weeks ago with Leslie Kean about the whistleblower David Grush and his contention that the government has been withholding the truth about the recovery of otherworldly crafts and bodies. Anything new on that? Yeah.
The story's really hit a nerve. I mean, it's gone viral. Congress is now scheduling hearings. A lot of members of Congress, Marco Rubio, Senator Gillibrand, have talked about the revelations by David Grush, a high-level intelligence guy, who really for the first time has gone on the record with his credentials saying that the government is in possession of a craft not of this earth. And other people have said that, but Grush has particularly good credentials, and he's very credible. And he has said this to Congress in closed testimony. He's made a whistleblower complaint because he was retaliated against illegally, as he contends, under the law. He's supposed to be protected for coming forward. So anyway, he has a lot of credentials to make these claims, and the story has really ballooned, mushroomed, snowballed. You could pick your image. So that's where it stands. And by the way, his lawyer, who is a former Inspector General of the intelligence community, Charles McCullough, has left his law firm, we understand, in order to take him on as a client, because the law firm, in a very strange statement, said that they had finished their job of representing him, and they were out of it, they were finished. When apparently it's not finished. I mean, he still has the whistleblower case pending, but McCullough is going to continue to represent him, we understand, and that is going to be announced, we think, shortly. So anyway, that's kind of where it stands.
Yeah. So can we expect to hear more from others coming forward with information, do you think?
Well, there are others. I mean, Grush is not alone. He was singularly courageous in coming forward under his own name and speaking to us on the record, to Leslie and me. But there are others, and we are in touch with people and trying to get them to come forward. So we think, once the genie is out of the bottle like this, it's very hard, if not impossible, to put it back in.
That's good. Now, did this whole thing for you and Deborah have something to do with writing this kid's book?
Well, let me turn it over to Deborah, and she'll tell
Okay.
the story.
Well, this really goes back to pre-pandemic days. We were home together, as were many couples, and Ralph was doing a lot of publicity for The Believer, and I was hearing his back and forth with various people about the crafts and the whole topic of UFOs. And as a children's book writer, I'm always in search of new ideas for projects. And we had never worked together. We had always gone in completely different directions. And it just occurred to me one day, gee, is there a children's book on UFOs? And if there isn't, there's certainly a place for one.
Yeah.
So we began to do a little research, and we realized that there really was nothing in the nonfiction area for picture book readers. I mean, there were books for middle grade and young adult, and many of them were really silly, science fiction, goofy, making fun of the field, but they had never done anything in terms of a legitimate picture book. So that really, so I asked Ralph, and he was mulling it over and didn't quite respond. And then I asked him a second time, and we slowly put together a draft, and went from my computer to his and back and forth numerous times. And then we agreed on a project, a manuscript we were both happy with, and really that's how it all began.
Yeah, I mean, we'd never worked together before because we did different things. And Deborah is, writing children's books and then young adult, middle grade, and I'm writing nonfiction, true crime type books. So it was a kind of a learning experience to work together. As it turns out, I think we're a good team.
Oh, I think you're terrific.
Well, we really had different strengths in terms of putting together the book. Neither of us had worked together with partners. Well, Ralph had at one point, and I think we both agree that it's easier to work on your own and be uninspired by someone else, handle it this way, handle it that way, or I don't like this, I don't like that. But in this case, I had experience in the children's book field, numerous picture books before, and Ralph certainly had the background in UFOs. So it really was a good marriage of talents.
Yeah. Is this book part of a series?
No, it isn't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you gave us a good idea.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
I think it should be. I wish I'd had a book like this for myself when I was a kid, and also for our daughter. She was freaked out by the X-Files, but I think if she had seen a book like this, she would have loved it. She would have loved it.
Yeah.
Well, we realize it really is a magical, mystical field. And, as a parent, where do you begin the discussion of introducing kids to UFOs? So we wanted something very basic, very credible, and we stuck to the science and verifiable information. And really, we didn't go further than that. And we did get a great illustrator, Adam.
Yeah, she's terrific.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that.
Different picture books before. He did a book of mine called The Blue House Dog, and I was really thrilled with the way that turned out. So he was interested in this topic, and so he got on board immediately.
Yeah.
He did a fantastic job. His perspectives are so interesting.
Yeah, so sometimes it's even above the UFO looking down.
Well, and here's an example of that real quick. And as soon as I say that, I can't find it. Here we go. Okay, there you go.
Yeah, this one.
But
I love that one.
very Seussian is what what I like about it. Very Seussian, because those are the books I loved when I was growing up. Is Dr. Seuss. Yep.
Well, I remember when Adam was illustrating The Blue House Dog, he told me he really got down on the ground and looked at a car headlight the way a dog would see it. And I could never have imagined that you do that, but obviously to get the proper perspective, that's what you do.
What a
For a
great
dog, yeah.
I don't know if he,
exactly.
kind of climbed a tree and looked down, but he's very interested in getting things right. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it really worked.
So you start out the book very simply, just kind of introducing the subject, but by the end of it, you're getting more into the almost the current topics related to the subject, which is interesting. I thought.
well,
I mean, how you get into this subject for young people is an interesting question, because
Mhm.
there's so much misinformation and speculation around. So we started off with the story that I had from The Believer. A colleague of John Mack told me, Wes Boyd, another psychiatrist, that when he was a kid, he saw a UFO on a tennis court. So we started our book together with this story of two kids on the tennis court who see a UFO. And again, this is all strictly factual. This is what they saw. There's no speculations, no aliens in this book. It's all science and observation, and what has been confirmed now through the Navy.
Yeah,
Pretty cool.
Yeah, which you get into a little bit towards the end of the book about that too. That's
Right.
interesting.
Now, so how did you meet this illustrator? Just through your first book about the dog?
Well, he was my agent represented him at the time, and she thought he would be a good match for the earlier book, The Blue House Dog. And so when this project came along, I had obviously been following his career, and I just had the feeling that he would do a good job with it. So I called him directly. And
he was very enthusiastic. He did this in record time, as it turned out. He was booked up with a lot of other jobs, and he kind of put them aside. I don't know how he juggled it, but usually artists take a long time to illustrate a book. You have to book them years in advance, but he turned this out in record time.
He's very fast. He just gets done.
John, if you can put up another illustration or two, that'd be good. You there, John? He said, "Don't interrupt me because I may be doing something else." So he has another job. So he may not have heard that.
Okay.
No, here you go.
Okay, there he is.
I'm sorry. I was punching buttons. So yeah. So yeah.
That's so cool.
Can y'all say that? Yeah, that is a nice one. And yeah.
There we go.
That's neat too.
I love his angles, the way he does that.
Yeah, his angles.
Right. Yeah.
Off kilter, just the way reality would have it.
Right.
Yeah, that one reminds me of the aliens in our backyard story, Trish.
Yeah, really, I know.
Because except the craft in this story came down vertically between a willow tree and the house, and
Wow.
But that is a good look at that. That's really cool. Okay, so do you think your book's going to be banned in Florida?
Well,
for children,
this is an uncomfortable subject for a lot of people.
Yeah.
They don't know how to take it, parents. So we were hoping that this would be a way for them to initiate a conversation with their kids. When their kids ask them a question, this would be a resource for parents to turn to, because it's really kind of non-judgmental. I mean, it talks science and what has been confirmed now by the Pentagon, that these things really exist. They don't more than that. So, but this is a strange area, and a lot of people are afraid of it. I mean, with some justification, because no one understands it. No one knows what these things are, where they come from, why they're here. And
it's also a book that doesn't pretend to have answers.
Right.
You really raise the questions, and there clearly are more questions than answers in the field, but it just gives readers, parents, children, whoever, the right questions to ask, and perhaps, guiding them in the directions to go.
Right.
So that's what to do, just provoke conversation.
And you're not making a joke out of it either. That's been the
problem.
problem.
That's the
a good point.
Exactly.
Thank you for saying that, because the ridicule factor is still a big problem.
It is.
And especially in the mainstream media, they can't wait to joke about it, make fun of it. And, you know, and it scares people. It scares legitimate scientists. It scares people who have had these experiences, whatever they are, from coming forward. So that's a very fortunate aspect of this.
Yeah, because it's potentially the biggest story ever of any.
You think so?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The thing is, I wonder how many children have had these experiences, but are so blown away by it, they don't know how to talk about it.
Well, exactly right. And they feel odd, they feel uncomfortable.
Right.
And, you know, we've started to do different children's book fairs now. And it really
Great
is
idea.
education to just have kids come over to us. And you can almost spot the ones who are interested from a distance. They're like, their eyes, you know, glom on,
light up.
Yeah.
And so far, we haven't gotten any kids who told us they had any strange experiences. I mean, adults, yes. But
yeah, we heard people came over to us just last week at a table and said that they had a, you know, UFO experience. So
have you had families come up to you and say, we've all seen this?
No,
that hasn't happened yet.
But Trish, as you and Rob know, this does tend to run in families.
Yes, it does.
Found that other researchers have found that for some reason that we don't understand, this phenomenon seems to occur in over different generations of the same family. So if parents have had these experiences, the chances are better than not the children will have, or that the grandparents have had. Whether this is some tracking thing, you know, we don't know. But it does seem that is an aspect of this phenomenon that is among the stranger things about.
Yeah, it really is.
It is, yeah.
Do you know, I had a question that just occurred to me. Ralph, do you know if anybody in John Mack's family had experiences?
Good question.
I always wondered about that.
They did, because John didn't, you know, John was disappointed that he never had a sighting or an abduction experience. And then he realized, well, it's probably better that he didn't, because when he was speaking, you know, as an outsider without an axe to grind. But I know his kids, I've talked to them. I knew his wife briefly before she died, sadly, of cancer. And I am not aware of anyone else in the family. You know, he came from a very conventional family, by the way. They were into, you know, weird things. And it was not like, you know, he was brought up believing in, you know, aliens, flying saucers. He was very firmly grounded. And that's why it was such a revelation when he took an interest in this subject. I mean, he was a highly recognized Harvard psychiatrist. And when he said there's something going on here that's really interesting, he had credibility, because he wasn't I use the word believer in a special way, as you know, not that he was gullible, but that he believed in the truth, etc. But anyway, to answer your question, no, I don't think anyone in his family have an experience.
And what about either of you? I'm sorry, Rob.
No, we have not.
No?
Okay. Yeah, I like that you brought in one of the stories that is in the John Mack book about the Zimbabwe story with the kids on the playground into your book. Can you talk a little bit about that? That's an interesting case, because they followed up on those kids as adults.
Right. Well, obviously, when you're writing a children's book, you want to bring children into the book. And this was such a dramatic story. And there were so many children who were observers and who did drawings and recorded their observations. So we thought, you know, this obviously has to be part of the book. And we're hoping, you know, children will relate to that, especially children in the classroom. I mean, you can't get a better group of objective observers. They had never experienced anything like this before, and yet they all had the same story to tell. So, you know, as reporters, this is gold, you know, and everyone's saying the same thing.
Yeah, this is really one of the best cases on record, as you know, because 60 different children had the same experience. And they were too young to really have read books about UFOs or gone to the movies. So they were pretty uncontaminated. They drew pictures of what they had seen, and they were very credible. And John Mack, as a psychiatrist, was particularly attuned to children because he was very close to his own 3 boys, and he was always interested in what prospective kids had. And he said, these kids are not making it up. I mean, he interviewed kids as young as 2 years old who talked about being flown out of their cribs and taken up in a spacecraft. And these kids have not read books about 2 years old about UFOs.
Right. Yeah.
Where was that coming from?
Right.
So, oh, by the way, you just reminded me of something. Bud Hopkins, who was John Mack's introduction to the whole UFO thing, an artist who basically started the whole science,
we met Bud.
Bud. He developed a test where he drew 12 images of popular figures, Santa Claus, different Mickey Mouse, and he showed them to the kids, and one was an alien. And he said, do you recognize any of these pictures? And often the kids would pick out the alien. Now, one kid didn't pick out the alien, and Bud Hopkins later realized he made a mistake because he asked the wrong question. He said, do you know any of these figures? And the kid didn't know the alien. But later when he rephrased it, the kid says, yeah, I recognize that thing. I just don't know him.
Right.
That's funny.
Didn't John Mack go to Zimbabwe actually? And
he did.
He did, and it's in my book. And that's how we knew about the case. And there's a wonderful film, as you probably know, Randy Nickerson did go back to Zimbabwe and interview. He did track down some of the former kids who are now adults. It turns out their lives were irrevocably changed by experience, and they still think about it. It's a wonderful film.
How could you not think about it, John?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah, something like that was shared by so many. So Ralph, back to your article. Why didn't the New York Times or the Washington Post publish this story? Is it
the Times? We came to the Times first because they published our other articles.
Right.
And it was kind of an early stage when we were putting it together. We went to them immediately, and at that point, they passed on it. I mean, we've taken them a lot of stories. Some they picked up, some they didn't. But then, by the time we had really began to pull it together, we had a long discussions with the Washington Post. They were very interested in the story. They were pursuing it. We together with them jointly, but it was just taking too long. I mean, they have a long, involved process. They had very good intentions. We had good people there, but it sort of flew out of control. David Grush's name was leaked on the internet. He was getting threats. We couldn't wait to go through their whole process anymore. So we had to publish it fast. So we published it in the debrief where we published before. It's a very credible website, specialized.
Yeah, it's good.
Intelligence. Yeah. So they did a very good job. They had their own fact checking. They have their own experts. And, but we have no beef. I mean, we know what the process is with the mainstream media. It's always difficult. We just had to move quickly.
Right. I guess the issue is physical evidence. That's what they're looking for. And what does it take to get physical evidence, or at least photos released? I mean,
there is, let's put it this way. A lot of this subject remains highly classified.
Yeah.
So Congress has been given information that we don't know, we don't have. Whether there is physical evidence that has been conveyed to Congress, we don't know. We hear stories. We know people who have testified, who have given information, but we are not able, to verify that to the point of putting it in an article. So physical evidence is very hard to get. It would be nice. Yeah, I agree with you. It'd be nice to show a craft. To have a tour, a congressional tour. Of a retrieved flying saucer, but it just doesn't happen that way. This field is very, very complicated, encumbered with all kinds of national security constraints, and so far it's just not available.
Yeah.
Has anybody in the field commented on your children's book?
Not really, I don't think
No,
so.
I don't think so.
Maybe we should get it to Congress.
Yeah, maybe you should.
Right,
Yeah.
Read this to your grandkids, guys.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
they-
well, or any of the usual suspects as far as following up on UFO encounters and stuff. So
Yeah.
has the book received any feedback from the UFO community as
We
a
had
whole?
some nice
Yeah.
reviews,
Yeah,
actually.
you do.
And you
On
know,
Instagram, I've gotten actually a lot of good feedback from a lot of the sites that have thousands and thousands of followers.
Huh.
They were excited about it and happy to see a picture book.
and I should say too, that the University of New Mexico Press, which published both The Believer and this
Yeah.
book, did consult child psychologists and some experts before they published it.
They were
because,
very careful.
yeah, they wanted to
Huh.
have the security of knowing that the book was solid and,
Right.
what impact it could have on families and so. So
Exactly.
they did a lot of due diligence.
Yeah.
And they came away satisfied that the book was solid and worth publishing.
Right. And also the Roswell newspaper mentioned reviews. They were very excited about it.
Oh,
and
that's cool.
They did a long interview with both of us. So they were, the reviewers actually had grandchildren and children of their own. So they were very positive about the book.
There is a section
That
on
was-
Roswell in the book, by the way.
Yeah.
with
Uh-huh.
pictures of, that, as you know, is a case where the government
Right.
has been very forthcoming,
Right.
to say the least.
a
And
lot of disinformation too out
yeah,
there.
yeah, I mean, the story that it was actually a weather balloon that crashed,
Yeah.
all that is problematic, shall we say.
God.
Yeah.
I know that if I were still teaching, I would teach this book. I really would.
Great.
Well, we have had people say that it should be taught and it should be.
It
be in
should.
Libraries, so hopefully it will be. And every time we've spoken to a librarian, they were excited and they have taken it in.
That's good.
What's the format? Is it hardcover or?
It is hardcover.
And is it like oversized?
No, it's
picture?
a traditional size of the
But
picture
it's
book.
interesting, the cover is imprinted on the book, it doesn't have a paper cover.
Paper cover.
Huh.
Do you have
So,
do you have a copy handy there?
Yes,
Yeah, let's-
Let me see it. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
yeah, they did a nice
Huh.
job, they
back
really
is
did.
sort of nice too with the.
Yeah,
there.
that is
Very
nice.
atmospheric, which is really what pleased us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They did a nice press release too, that one you sent.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, they were very professional about it. And I mean, New Mexico, it's a subject very close to their heart.
Yeah.
Because,
right.
this phenomenon has really happened everywhere around the world. It's not just American, it's not,
Right.
but the most famous cases, or many of the most famous cases, have been out there, in Arizona, New Mexico, Texas,
Right.
California, maybe because people are outdoors more there, and there's a lot of speculation why it should be. But in places where people spend a lot of time outdoors, they're looking up more and they probably tend to have more
See these things.
observations.
Yeah, there seemed to be all over. Back in the 1980s, Trish and I led adventure tours to South America, and we went on 3 different excursions to the upper Amazon in an old rubber boat, and stopping at these villages. And there were stories we heard of the crafts appearing there and people coming out of them and, talking with the locals.
And bearing gifts.
Yeah.
I don't know about bearing gifts. But...
Well, lipstick. They had lipstick. One of the stories was the woman was given a tube of lipstick.
Jeez.
Wow.
I gotta say that once you get into this field, as you two know, I'm sure, one story is stranger than the next.
Yes.
Right.
Well, that's
And
for
you
sure.
cannot make this stuff up. The stories
Yeah.
people tell about encounters they've had. And again, people say, well, you have any proof? No, I don't have any proof.
Which
But-
is why, as an author, you feel so compelled to
Right.
stick to the verifiable and not, drift off into
Right.
an area where you can't absolutely confirm what you've said. So we
I mean,
were careful.
John Mack really wished that there was a science of witnessing, that witnessing would be accepted as a kind of scientific proof. I mean, it is in religion.
Good point. Yeah.
But and in courts, I mean, if a witness says, I saw the suspect do this and this, and the jury believes the witness, even though there's no film or video, that can result in a conviction.
Right.
So, you know, courts sort of accept witness testimony, religion accepts witness testimony, but we're reluctant to accept it because we want to see, you know, scientific proof, something tangible. I understand that.
The spaceship,
Well,
the alien.
yeah, but this phenomenon so far has not produced that. So that's the mystery. And as you know, the subtitle of our book is Mysteries in the Sky. This is a mystery. We don't solve the mystery.
Yeah, the stories are so strange, some of them. We years ago had an opportunity to observe Bud Hopkins regressing a person to her experience. We had met him at a UFO conference in Hollywood, Florida, and he needed a ride to get to, he had gone on a Miami radio station talking about the subject, and he had call-ins, and one of the women who called in, he sensed that she was her story was really
we said, well, we'll drive you, you.
So we drove him up to Lake Worth, where they lived, and we watched him in the whole process. And she described being floated down the hall, out of her bed, down the hall, and right through the wall of the house, and to not a craft, but like a tube of light in the backyard. And so there were three of them, and they're around her, and they went up this tube. And as it turned out, she lived very close to where the National Enquirer used to have its offices. And this was around Christmas time, and they used to have this huge Christmas tree, like a 50-foot high Christmas tree, and they had a little train for kids, and it was
decorated.
It was a big holiday event there. And so she pointed out the Christmas tree to them. And, you know, about the National Enquirer was the place that, you know, actually wrote about back in the 80s. And they actually wrote about UFOs, and she pointed the Christmas tree out to them. And so Bud asked her, what did they think? And she said, they're not impressed. That was her response. Yeah.
Yeah, that was she was
Well, you know, these stories are fascinating, but we don't deal with them in this book, as you know.
Right.
Very close to just sightings, and the fact that now the government says they've come, you know, around finally and said, after years of disinformation, said, yeah, these objects are physically real, most likely. Because they've been captured on radar and video. They've been, you know, eyeballed by pilots with excellent training and visual skills. So the objects are real, but other than that, we
don't know anything.
Right. The government and what's been revealed so far through the Navy, that it's just objects right now, nothing really further than that, except that the objects, they don't know what they are, or a lot of them, they don't know what they are.
That's true, but they know a little bit. They know, for example, that some of them have been seen entering and coming out of the water.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is why they've changed the name of the investigative agency to the All Domain Research Arrow Office. So because it's not just up in the atmosphere that these things have been spotted. So they know that. They seem to operate in media, air and water. They know that they seem to have amazing aerodynamic abilities that are not known to be possessed by any power on Earth. They go faster than anything we think anybody on Earth is capable of, and they can be invisible. They make turns in an astonishing sharp way. I mean,
that would kill humans.
That are just not known. The technology that's not known to be possessed by the Russians or the Chinese or us.
Right. Yeah. So, Ralph, did your views about UFOs, aliens, and abductions change from the time you began this research on this subject?
Well, I got a great respect for John Mack, I'll say that, because I thought he was very careful. I mean, as you probably know, Harvard put him under investigation.
Yeah.
Right.
Not happy with his 2 books and with his public appearances. He was a little bit over enthusiastic, which he acknowledged. Harvard thought they were getting a bad name. You know, actually, Harvard had pioneered all kinds of strange research, going back to William James 100 years before. But anyway, but I got a great respect for the care and the courage of John Mack, because he was willing to take the heat.
Yeah.
Whereas other people would be afraid, and colleagues of his would not have taken this on because they were too afraid of injuring their careers. But he was very courageous and single-minded and heroic, word I use at the end of the book. So you asked me if my opinions changed. Well, I didn't know very much about the field when I took it on. I mean, I stumbled across one of John Mack's books when we were in Texas. I was a correspondent for the New York Times in Texas, and that's what got me started. And then he was run over and killed in London. He had written a Pulitzer Prize winning biography of Lawrence of Arabia, and he was going back for a conference, and he got run over because he was an American. He looked the wrong way down the street.
So you're satisfied that was an accident?
Yes, I checked it out carefully. I know the guy who ran him over. I mean, I learned about the guy who ran him over. He was drunk, and it was thoroughly investigated. It sounds too, weird,
right?
To be a conventional explanation, but it really was. So I didn't know much about this subject when I started. My background was reporting for the New York Times on Nazi war criminals and
totally different
corrupt public officials, and suddenly here I am in this new subject, and I pursued it like any reporter would pursue a subject. So my opinions changed because I knew nothing to begin with.
Deborah, what about you? I mean, did you always believe in UFOs?
No, not at all. I actually had no opinion on the subject because it was an area I had never looked into. My background is nutrition, so I studied biology, physiology, and chemistry and nutrition, and I was, very glued to the science. So I never ventured into that area at all. I had no reason to. I didn't know anyone who had any story to tell. So I was very skeptical, and even now I am in awe of what's going on. I don't know what to think. I would tell people I don't believe it and I don't not believe it. I'm somewhere in the middle. I also would love to see physical proof, but
we all would.
We go by what we do know and what's verifiable. There's enough out there, and certainly, as a reporter, when people all over the world who don't know each other are telling the same or very similar stories, you begin to think something is very going on here and something's very real. So you can't deny it.
Are you aware of Preston Dennett, Ralph, the author? His name is Preston Dennett. He's probably written more UFO books than anybody else on the planet. But one of the books he just finished was called Symmetry. And it's supposedly a true story about this woman, Dolly, who apparently remembers abductions since childhood. Now, who knows? There's no way anybody can prove any of this, but it's another one of those stories you hear and it makes you think, it makes you question.
Yeah. And she has so much detail too, about the crafts and being taken aboard, and that the craft itself is biological and
is run telepathically.
And has a name, and she communicated with it and apparently still does. But the
one thing that did impress me was and John Mack made a whole point of this, that the people who were telling stories like this are otherwise completely normal. I mean, he found no identifiable pathology in these people who were telling these stories. So the stories are totally wild and crazy and not to be believed, or they're just unfathomable stories, and yet the people themselves are otherwise completely sane and normal. They're teachers and professors and law enforcement people, and
she worked for the Department of Treasury.
Yeah,
and defense.
right? Every walk of
And
life,
defense,
including
yeah.
people in our government who have had experiences like this. They don't always talk about it or often, but so that's what struck John Mack, is that these people were normal in every other way. And it didn't advance them to tell these stories. As a matter of fact, it hurt them because they got subject to ridicule and they lost their jobs, or people made fun of them. So there was no financial motive. There was no other motive to come forward to make it up. So he was left with, well, maybe on some level, somewhere, somehow, in another dimension, I don't know, something happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I mean,
really.
I'm sorry, go ahead, John.
So is that part of your inspiration for writing this, for producing this children's book, is to hopefully set the precedent that you don't have to be scared to come forth and talk about this?
Well, exactly. We really hope that it provides some level of comfort to kids who feel uncomfortable or strange or different or afraid. Obviously, with any subject, if you can express your thoughts and talk about it rather than hide them, you're much healthier mentally than keeping these things to yourself. So yes, we hope to bring the subject out into the open for young people, and give them some level of comfort and make them feel they're not alone in the world. If it's happening to them, it's happened, it has happened to other children as well. And we hope it provides a tool for them to get help and share their thoughts and talk to their parents or their teachers or grandparents and other children.
Right, take away the ridicule factor.
Yeah, exactly.
And as I said before, even in the government, people like Lou Elizondo, who headed the government's program called ATIP.
Oh, right.
Story we broke in the New York Times in 2017. That he ran into opposition within the government, even though he was the head of this Pentagon office to investigate UFOs. He ran into opposition because there were people saying this is a demonic subject. It's demonic. God. We don't want to look into this. Demonic. Well, it's not demonic if you just understand that this is what people are reporting, that they saw craft, UFOs, whatever. So let's do the research.
Yeah, you have to wonder how many politicians have had experiences that they're not willing to talk about.
Besides Jimmy Carter, he
got a lot of grief for that. I mean, he admitted that he saw a UFO, and that was back at a time when it was still a much more a subject of ridicule, and he was laughed at.
Right. Yeah.
Well, I keep hoping the aliens will come down and take some of the more offensive politicians, like the book banners.
Right.
Well, again, I'm glad you mentioned book banning, because, we find that whole idea so offensive. Again,
it's horrid.
Just talk to kids. Let them read what they want to read. If you as a parent think the subject isn't appropriate, don't buy the book. But don't tell one parent that a book shouldn't be in the library. And what these people don't know is by banning a book, they're giving it such visibility.
Yes, they are.
Free publicity. So it's crazy. But clearly, we need to have the field very open, and no subject should be off the table in terms of discussion. One subject or another may be unpleasant, but you don't make it, by banning the book, you don't take away the subject. It's still there.
Right.
Yeah. Does it just disappear?
Right.
Yeah, it's the Barnes and Noble in our town in Wellington. Florida.
It's great.
Walk in there's a big table right near the entrance, and that's banned books.
Oh, right.
That's great.
And I've seen that picture. And
doing it in her bookstore in Key West, so they get very good visibility.
And to be clear, books that were banned from both sides of the aisle. So don't think that just because one side gets in charge, books don't get banned. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Oh, no, I mean,
Yeah.
it's true for different reasons, whether it's religious or weirdness or whatever,
Yeah,
you know.
There was somebody who wanted to ban the Bible.
yeah.
It was-
Yeah, right.
Well,
There
Yeah.
you go.
The Bible has a lot of violence, as we
Yes,
know.
it does.
And,
does.
and
A
how
lot
did
of
all
sex
those-
in it, violence. I
and
mean,
all those
Right.
begats, where did
Yeah.
those begats
Yeah.
get?
Certainly
True.
that book should go away. Yeah.
Yeah. So, Ralph, have you interviewed Marco Rubio? About the
We
subject?
tried, Leslie and I. I don't think he likes the New York Times very much. But we tried to interview him early on. It's interesting. Marco Rubio, Tucker Carlson, a lot of the right-wing conservatives are very interested in UFOs.
Right, they
Mhm.
are. Yeah.
And Tucker Carlson has had Leslie on a few times, actually,
huh.
talking about UFOs when he was at Fox. So I don't know what the connection is between, ultra-conservative MAGA Republicans and UFOs, but there's some interest there. But to answer your question, we did not interview Marco Rubio. We tried, and I got to tell you this also. When we did the David Grush article about the high-level intelligence guy who says that the U.S. has
Mhm.
the craft, we couldn't talk to members of Congress because they are strictly sworn to secrecy. When they have gotten information from witnesses, whistleblowers like David Grush, it's always top secret, classified. It's classified. So we can't even talk to them about what information do you have? What do you think is going on? Whatever. They don't talk about that. And that's true for congressional staffers at the Senate Intelligence Committee, the House Intelligence Committee, Armed Services, and members themselves. So this is not something, everybody says, well, Congress leaks like a sieve. Well, they don't leak on this subject, I can tell you that.
Yeah, I wonder why. I mean, they leak on everything else.
They leak on everything else, but they take this very seriously. And we have gotten, first of all, nobody wants to go to jail for leaking national security information. And this information is classified. The stuff that's not classified, we reported on in the New York Times and elsewhere. The stories about sightings and the physical evidence to the extent we could talk about it. So we've reported on it, but the really good stuff we can't get at because it's classified.
Right. Yeah.
Have you ever asked for a tour of Roswell? Now that would be interesting.
I've been there, and it looks like every other place.
Yeah. Right.
But there have been people like Diana Pasulka, who has a new book out, I understand. She's the religion scholar, who's a very credible writer on this.
Oh, right.
And she did go to Roswell and other places and pick up stuff, and it was being analyzed. So Jacques Vallée and Gary Nolan at Stanford and others are really doing the hard research. And let me say one other thing, because there are people who are doing credible research in this field, and then there are so-called skeptics who all they say is it can't be true. It's not, and if the skeptics would do as much work as some of the researchers who really are into this, be much better skeptics. There's nothing wrong with being skeptical,
Right.
but you got to be skeptical from a standpoint of understanding enough of the subject so that you can question the holes that there are, and there are holes. There's a lack of physical proof.
Right.
But many of the so-called skeptics are they're lazy. They don't do their homework. All they do is ridicule the subject, and they haven't delved into the voluminous research, which does exist.
Right. It's the same with in the field of paranormal. They
except the UFO thing's worse.
Yeah.
Years ago, Rob and I knew a guy who had been abducted back. Remember Mikey? He had been abducted on a Halloween night. And
right.
He was so haunted by this thing. And of course, everybody ridiculed him that he talked to, except for us. So we took him to a psychiatrist.
Yeah,
who we know,
Schwartz.
Bernard Schwartz.
Yeah.
Wasn't his first name Bernard?
Bernard.
I think so.
Yeah. I'm not
Anyway.
sure. Yeah, he was up in Vero Beach, Florida, and he
regressed him.
Regressed him, and he just really broke down during the regression, and but described the interesting interior of this craft. There was some writing in the wall, the interior wall, that he tried to duplicate after it was over, but it was.
But you could see that he really experienced something. He was so traumatized by this memory. You know, so people can't make that stuff up.
Right,
You
well,
can't make up trauma.
John Mack. I mean, John Mack was a psychiatrist who knew how people act, said that it was so authentic, the way people recreated the experience, that he found that very credible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's.
You guys got to write a sequel.
Well, when there's more information, nail it.
Whenever.
And we're comfortable, maybe we will.
Well, you know, a lot of people ask me, you know, what more is coming out, and where is this thing headed? And when you look at how far we've come,
Right.
I mean, the government was putting out disinformation for decades, saying that this phenomenon is not real, it's hallucinations, and all that. And now they've actually had 2 hearings in Congress. There've been 2 reports that have come out, not terribly illuminating, but there's still some hope. So, but at least now the government is saying that these things are real, and a lot of the sightings remain unexplained. They're not all explainable, as they used to say. So I think we're heading in the right direction. Let's put it that way.
There's efforts.
A lot to do, but
it seems like there's efforts to.
And in the internet age, information is shared in seconds. So again, when something happens, you know, it's not buried. Everybody knows it within an hour. The whole world is
Exactly.
Everybody's got a cell phone now.
You
know, you have to run into your house to get a camera if you see something. There is that, and the Navy instrumentation has gotten very, very sophisticated. We put out a number of 3 videos in the New York Times when Leslie and I wrote our first story in 2017, and you know, so this is all in a few years that the Navy has
that's true.
You know, this record. So if you say, well, what's the prognosis for the next 50 years, you can only imagine the kind of information that can be picked up. So in that sense, I think we're going to be getting a lot more information.
Yeah, I think so too.
And you know, talked a lot about the whistleblower and everything, but and Trish and Rob, I haven't heard your reaction to this either, but the Las Vegas story that came out
I saw that.
right in the wake of the whistleblower with the it was supposed
very strange. You know, it reminded me a little bit of the Varinga incident in Brazil, which John Mack investigated, and there's a film about that, about 3 girls who saw what they described as an alien on the street, and a number of the aliens supposedly, again, as according to the story, got picked up by the police and taken to a hospital, and they died presumably, but there were tests done and all that. Anyway, yeah, I mean, that Las Vegas thing was really weird. It came out right at the time of the David Grush story.
Also, when your story came out, there was also a SETI convention going on, and you know, SETI, they're interested in aliens as long as they live far away. And so one of the participants wrote an article, and he was saying, well, what we're doing at the SETI convention is much more interesting than this article about David Grush. He's very defensive anyhow.
Well, you know, John Mack said looking, that he was pretty dismissive of the SETI process. He said it was like looking for a good Italian restaurant in the cosmos.
Yeah.
Because it's very anthropomorphic. They're using, you know, radio waves and things. So he thought it was really old-fashioned, their technology. Whereas the evidence that he was accumulating, which was all anecdotal, he thought was really more interesting to pursue. Even though, again, it was not scientific in the sense that they could put their hands on anything. It was all witness accounts, but
that should count, you see.
oh, it should count for something.
Yeah, it should.
Well, you know, Carl Sagan, they sent probes out. You know, he put out a record that they sent out to, you know, far into outer space, that if it ever reached an alien civilization, they could learn about humanity. And so who knows? That was kind of a form of SETI. So
yeah. Ralph, are you working on anything new now?
Well, I've been pretty tied up with Deborah promoting UFOs. We're in Exeter now, Exeter, New Hampshire, where I teach in the summer, but we're going to be coming back in on Labor Day because they have a big UFO festival in Exeter, because as you said, the incident at Exeter, which happened in the 60s, a whole bunch of sightings. It's a famous place. So they're very interested in the phenomenon, and we're going to be coming back to talk about our book and sign copies. And
we'll also be in East Hampton at their children's book festival mid-August. So
yeah, so we did one of these.
How about the Miami Book Fair in November? That thing is huge.
It is.
I applied to that, but we weren't accepted. So
really?
That's
and I would have liked to have gone to that.
That's crazy.
There's a lot of book fairs,
Yeah.
Trish, and you know, we like to get to as many as possible. It's kind of hard to, you know, travel everywhere.
But Miami Book Fair, I mean, that's
that's
huge.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of them that we like to do. And
you actually contacted somebody and they said, we don't want you?
We didn't hear back, so I guess
Oh, God.
hear back. That's the end of it.
Chappaqua.
We're going to Rye in September and have a couple of others also on schedule. So
jeez.
We're kind of busy.
So best of luck with that book. It's
and if you do come to Miami, let us know. We'll come meet you down there.
Yeah,
okay.
we'd love to.
That'd be great.
All right.
Yeah,
Let me
is everywhere, and you know, and we found people are interested everywhere.
I think so.
I mean, we're competing with a lot of other things going on in the world.
Yeah, except this book is unique.
Yeah.
It really is. I mean, for a picture book for kids, it's just I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, John.
Let me share
Spread the word.
let me
Yeah, show
share
us some more
the cover again.
Okay, put
real
it
quick.
up there.
And
There we go.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I didn't understand the H at first, and Trish said,
Right.
"Oh."
Right. Yeah, you got to kind of say the title.
Yeah, you do.
Immediately intuitive.
I will say, because of the H, when you do a search on UFOs, it doesn't necessarily come up right away. So something we're aware of when we name the book. But once you understand it and you know to put in the H, you see it.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just great. Well, John, will this go up?
Well, number one, wanted to
that's
share the
cool.
gold disc.
Oh, yes,
that is
that's
is
cool.
the gold disc that went out on Voyager. There you go.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there it is.
Wow.
Yep. And and then yes, we will put this up a week from Sunday.
Okay.
Oh, great.
I'll send you the
good.
link, Ralph.
Yeah. It's great having you on.
Oh, it's great. Now we have a YouTube channel too, finally. So John has finally been able to have time to put that up.
So when he's showing these photos, you know, it'll be it won't be just audio as before. So
check out the YouTube channel to see the illustrations that we shared, because it is a beautifully illustrated book for sure.
Yeah.
Oh, good.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay. Great talking
Thank
to
you. It was great talking to you.
Both.
Ralph,
Appreciate
stay
it
in
so
touch.
much.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Take
And
care, you guys.
And
Have
good
fun
luck with
extra-
future. Good luck with future developments, Ralph.
Yeah, we're watching.
I'm sure you're
talking to
I'm-
Leslie all the time, and
Yeah.
we're, staying tuned because this thing is moving fast. So
Yeah, I see her on Facebook. She makes some
yeah,
posts about it on Facebook. Yeah.
yeah, she's
Interesting.
terrific. She really
Yeah.
knows the stuff.
Great.
So
And I hope
Yeah.
you guys have a sighting.
well,
It
We'll
would be,
see.
it would be interesting. I'd love to.
maybe they don't want us for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, well, take
Okay.
care. Have a good evening and a good
Alright.
weekend.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you so much.